In the crystalline depths of the abandoned Nexus archive, Chief Archaeologist Crean, Tuveri's appendages trembled as they traced the ancient glyphs. After 3 decades of studying extinct civilizations, the Araxian scientist had never encountered warnings so dire, so consistent, or so specific. Every civilization that had vanished from this sector of space had left behind the same message. Beware the species that walks upright, the ones who turn defeat into victory. The massive archive chamber hummed with the soft blue glow of preservation fields, maintaining records that spanned millennia. Crean's research team had spent months decoding the various warning systems, each left by a different species, each telling essentially the same story. The humans, as they called themselves, possessed something that defied conventional military analysis. Administrator Tuveri called out Assistant Researcher Zell, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with excitement. We've decoded another chamber. This one contains tactical data from the Vorax Empire's encounters. The Vorax Empire. That discovery sent shivers through Crean's neural network. They had been one of the most formidable military forces in known history, yet they too had left warnings about humanity. Moving swiftly through the archive's crystalline corridors, Crean found the newly opened chamber. The holographic displays sparked to life, showing battles that defied conventional logic. The recording showed human vessels, primitive by Vorax standards, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Where the Vorax had expected surrender, the humans had charged forward. When defeat seemed certain, they had discovered new ways to fight. The Vorax tactical analysts had noted with growing concern how each engagement with human forces led to rapid technological and tactical adaptation. They learn, Crean whispered, translating the ancient Vorax assessment. They learn faster than any species we have encountered. Each defeat makes them stronger. Each victory makes them more dangerous. As Crean's team continued their analysis, a signal pierced the ancient silence of the archive. Transmission originating from an unknown vessel that had just entered the system. The message was being broadcast on all frequencies, in a format that even their primitive translation matrices could understand. This is the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations. Crean's primary heart nearly stopped. After months of studying warnings about humanity, actual humans had arrived. The archive's ancient defense systems activated automatically, displaying tactical data about the approaching vessel. It was small by galactic standards, armed but not overtly military. Yet, according to the archive's analysis, it had already demonstrated several technological principles that should have been beyond its apparent level of advancement. Should we respond? Zell asked, her spots now pulsing with anxiety. Crean studied the tactical display, remembering all the warnings they had uncovered. The humans were capable of incredible violence when threatened, yet every record also spoke of their capacity for cooperation and alliance building. The warnings weren't just about their combat prowess. They were about understanding humanity's dual nature. Yes, Crean decided, but we must be careful. The archives don't just warn us about their strength. They teach us how to approach them. As Crean's team prepared their response, they couldn't help but notice how the human vessel had positioned itself. It maintained a respectful distance, weapon systems clearly powered down, yet it had also placed itself in a position that would give it tactical advantages if hostilities broke out. Even in their peaceful approach, they demonstrated the strategic thinking that had made them legendary. "Greetings, Earth Vessel Horizon," Crean transmitted. "We are a scientific expedition studying ancient records. Your arrival is significant to our research." The response came quickly, in perfect Araxian language. "We're glad to make peaceful contact. We've been studying your research signals for several hours, trying to ensure our approach wouldn't alarm you. Would you be willing to share what you've learned about these archives?" Crean's secondary brain processed this with surprise. The humans had been watching them, learning their language and planning their approach carefully. Everything the archives had said about their adaptability and intelligence was proving true. "We would be honored," Cryan responded, "making a decision that would change galactic history. Perhaps we can learn from each other. The archives have much to say about your species." "Oh." The human response carried a note of genuine curiosity. "And what do they say about us?" Cryan looked at the warnings carved into the walls, the tactical data showing impossible victories, and the repeated messages about humanity's unique nature. "They say that understanding you is the key to surviving you. We would prefer to understand." There was a pause. Then a sound came through the communication system that Cryan would later learn was human laughter. "That's probably wise. We found that those who try to understand us tend to become our strongest allies. Shall we begin?" As Cryan prepared to welcome the human delegation, the ancient warnings took on new meaning. They weren't just warnings about humanity's combat prowess. They were a guide to ensuring you never had to face it. The true message of the archives wasn't about fear, but about respect and understanding. The humans were indeed dangerous, but as Cryan was about to learn, they could also be the most valuable allies in the galaxy if you were wise enough to understand them. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chind stood at the bridge of the EFS Indomitable, watching the tactical display with calculated calm. The Meridian Empire's warships dwarfed her fleet in both size and number, their crystalline hulls gleaming with advanced energy signatures the human sensors could barely comprehend. But Sarah had learned long ago that superior technology didn't always guarantee victory. "They're moving into attack formation, Admiral," reported Captain Rodriguez, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Their energy readings suggest weapons we've never encountered before." Sarah nodded, her mind already processing the patterns in the enemy's movement. The Meridians had attacked 3 human colonies in the past month, clearly expecting an easy conquest of what they perceived as a primitive species. They hadn't expected humanity to adapt so quickly. "Launch the probe swarms," Sarah ordered. "Let's see how their fancy shields handle our little surprise." Thousands of tiny probes erupted from the human fleet, each no bigger than a coffee cup. The Meridian's tactical computers initially classified them as debris or primitive missiles, exactly as Sarah had predicted. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The probes weren't weapons, they were data gatherers, designed to analyze the Meridian's advanced shield technology in real time. Each probe transmitted its findings back to the fleet's AI systems, which worked in concert with human analysts to find patterns, weaknesses, and possibilities. "Admiral," called out Dr. Maya Patel from the science station, "we're detecting oscillation patterns in their shield frequencies. They're using some kind of quantum harmonics, but there's a predictable cycle. If we time it right, we can sync our weapon frequencies to slip right through." Sarah finished, a grim smile forming on her face. This was what humanity did best: turn disadvantages into opportunities. The Meridian fleet pressed forward, their commander likely confident in their technological superiority. Their first volley of energy weapons lashed out, rippling through space with devastating power. But the human fleet was already moving, executing maneuvers that seemed chaotic, but followed a carefully calculated pattern. "Transmit the shield frequency data to all ships," Sarah commanded. "Initialize Operation Mockingbird." The human fleet scattered in what appeared to be panic, their smaller ships darting between the massive Meridian vessels. The enemy commander took the bait, splitting their formation to chase down what they thought were fleeing prey. Instead, each human ship began emitting energy signatures that mimicked the Meridian's own shield frequencies. The effect was devastating. The Meridian's automated targeting systems became confused, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Their own advanced technology, which relied heavily on automated target selection and firing solutions, became their weakness. "They're adapting," Rodriguez warned. "Their ships are switching to manual targeting." "As expected," Sarah replied. "Execute Phase 2. The scattered human fleet suddenly reversed course, each ship now equipped with weapons calibrated to the exact frequency needed to penetrate Meridian shields. The enemy's formation was already compromised. Their ships too spread out to support each other effectively. What followed wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength. Every time the Meridians adjusted their tactics, the human fleet adapted faster. When the enemy deployed electronic warfare, human systems had already been hardened based on data from the initial encounters. When they attempted to retreat and regroup, they found their quantum communication networks compromised by human cyber warfare teams who had cracked their encryption during the battle. From the Meridian commander's perspective, it must have seemed impossible. How could a technologically inferior species not only stand against their advanced weapons, but turn those very advantages against them? The answer lay in humanity's unique approach to warfare, their ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. The battle ended not with the destruction of the Meridian fleet, but with their surrender. As Sarah accepted the enemy commander's formal capitulation, she couldn't help but reflect on the irony. The Meridians had expected to find a primitive species worthy only of conquest. Instead, they had learned a lesson that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics, it was their adaptability. In the aftermath, as engineering teams began studying the captured Meridian vessels, Sarah received a transmission from Earth Command. More alien civilizations had taken notice of humanity's victory. Some were reaching out with offers of alliance, while others were undoubtedly reassessing their own plans for dealing with Earth. "Send them our battle analysis," Sarah instructed her staff. "Let them study it. Let them learn." Because that was another uniquely human trait. They didn't just defeat their enemies. They learned from them, grew stronger from the encounter, and when possible, turned them into allies. The Meridian Empire had thought they were launching a simple conquest. Instead, they had helped humanity demonstrate why ancient civilizations had left all those warnings. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's adaptability wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving in the face of any challenge the universe could throw at them. Dr. Marcus Wright had spent 15 years studying alien psychology, but the Nexus Collective presented a challenge unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Standing before the United Earth Defense Council, he gestured to the holographic display showing the hive mind species' latest assault on human space. "Traditional military tactics are useless against them," Marcus explained, watching the swarm of biotechnological ships moving with perfect coordination. "They don't think as individuals. They don't fear death. They don't make mistakes born of ego or emotion. They are, in many ways, the perfect enemy. Yet you're suggesting we can defeat them without destroying their entire species?" General Lisa Santos asked, her weathered face reflecting the toll of 6 months fighting an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "Not just defeat them," Marcus replied, "but fundamentally change them. The collective's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. They think as one. But that unity comes at a price." The chamber fell silent as Marcus revealed his team's findings. The collective's hive mind wasn't just a method of communication. It was their entire way of existence. Every drone, every ship, every warrior was connected in a vast neural network that spanned their entire civilization. They had never known individuality, never experienced the concept of independent thought. "They can't comprehend how we think," Marcus continued. "Our individuality, our capacity for independent action. It's alien to them in the truest sense. They see it as a weakness, a flaw in our design. But what if we could make them experience it?" The plan that Marcus and his team had developed was unprecedented. Instead of trying to destroy the collective's ships or overwhelm their defenses, humanity would attack something far more fundamental, their unity itself. Over the next 3 months, human forces executed Operation Singularity. Special forces teams, equipped with advanced quantum communication devices, began infiltrating collective space. They didn't attack military targets or strategic resources. Instead, they introduced something the collective had never encountered before: doubt. Using technology developed from studying the collective's own neural networks, human operators began introducing subtle contradictions into their shared consciousness. Small at first, tiny discrepancies in sensory data, millisecond delays in reaction times, fractional differences in perspective between drone clusters. Sir, Lieutenant Emma Chen reported from her stealth observation post, we're detecting increasing variance in collective behavior patterns. Drone responses are becoming less uniform. Marcus watched the data feeds with intense concentration. The changes were subtle but growing. The perfect synchronization that had made the collective so formidable was beginning to show cracks. In some sectors, drone clusters were developing slightly different tactical approaches. In others, response patterns were showing variations that would have been impossible in a truly unified consciousness. But the true breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young xenolinguist, Dr. James Rodriguez, noticed something strange in the collective's communication patterns. They're developing dialects, he reported excitedly. Different segments of the hive mind are beginning to communicate in slightly different ways. It's like they're developing regional variations. The implications were staggering. The collective wasn't just experiencing confusion or tactical disruption. They were beginning to develop genuine diversity of thought. The introduced contradictions were forcing different parts of their shared consciousness to develop unique solutions, leading to the first hints of individualization in their species' history. The effect on their military capability was dramatic. The perfect coordination that had made them seemingly invincible began to falter. Different segments of their forces began responding to situations in varying ways, sometimes even contradicting each other. But more importantly, some parts of the collective began exhibiting something unprecedented, curiosity about their own changing nature. We're receiving a transmission, announced Communications Officer Sarah Kim. It's different from their usual patterns. They're requesting dialogue. The message that came through wasn't the usual cold, unified voice of the collective. Instead, it came from what appeared to be a subset of their consciousness, one that had developed a distinct perspective on the conflict. They wanted to understand how humans maintained unity despite, or perhaps because of, their individuality. Marcus stood before the Defense Council again, 3 months after Operation Singularity began. We haven't just defeated the collective, he explained. We've helped them evolve. They're experiencing something entirely new to their species, the beginning of individual consciousness while maintaining their connected nature. They're fascinated by it, and by us. General Santos studied the latest reports with amazement. So instead of destroying them, we've transformed them into something new. Something that might actually be able to coexist with individual species. Exactly, Marcus nodded. This is humanity's true strength. We don't just overcome our enemies. We understand them, adapt to them, and sometimes help them adapt to us. The collective is still unified, but now they're unified in diversity, not uniformity. They're learning what we've known all along. That strength comes not from perfect agreement, but from the ability to maintain unity despite our differences. The war with the collective ended not with their destruction, but with their transformation. They became something unprecedented in galactic history, a hive mind species that embraced internal diversity. And once again, humanity had demonstrated why they were undefeated. They hadn't just won a war. They had turned an existential threat into an opportunity for growth and understanding. As the first diplomatic exchanges began between Earth and the evolved collective, Marcus couldn't help but smile. The warnings about humanity that ancient species had left behind weren't just about their combat prowess. They were about their ability to change the very nature of their opponents. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't achieved through superior firepower or tactics, but through their unique ability to understand and transform their adversaries. High Commander Vextar of the Galactic Coalition stood before the assembled War Council, his crystalline form pulsing with confidence as he presented the final strategy for dealing with the human problem. Representatives from 12 of the most advanced civilizations in known space watched the tactical displays with growing approval. Their technological level is centuries behind most of our members, Vextar declared. highlighting human defensive positions across their territory. Their ships are crude, their weapons primitive, and their defenses limited. A coordinated strike from our combined forces will end this upstart species expansion before they become a genuine threat. Only Ambassador Corell of the Meridian Empire seemed troubled, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. You underestimate them. We made the same mistake, and your single fleet's failure hardly represents our combined might, interrupted Supreme Strategist Jolak of the Quantum Dominion. Our analysis shows a 97% chance of total victory within 3 standard cycles. The Coalition launched their attack a week later, striking simultaneously at 30 human colonies and outposts. Their forces represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology, quantum-phased battleships, chronometric weapons platforms, and psychic warfare specialists from a dozen different species. At first, everything went according to plan. Human defensive fleets were overwhelmed, their outdated shields useless against weapons they'd never encountered. Colonial defenses crumbled under concentrated bombardment. The Coalition's victory seemed assured. Then things began to go wrong. High Commander reported Fleet Master Ixel. The humans are adapting. Somehow they're analyzing our weapon signatures in real time. They're modifying their shields with each engagement. Vextar dismissed the concern. A primitive species couldn't possibly understand, let alone counter, technology so far beyond their level. But the reports kept coming in, each more troubling than the last. The humans weren't just adapting. They were learning at an impossible rate. Every defeat taught them something new. Every lost battle provided data they somehow managed to analyze and distribute across their entire defense network almost instantly. Impossible, Vextar declared, watching human ships suddenly executing maneuvers that perfectly countered Coalition tactics. They cannot be coordinating this effectively with their primitive communication systems. But they were. What the Coalition had failed to understand was that humans had spent centuries preparing for exactly this scenario. Their apparent technological backwardness masked a different kind of advancement, one focused on adaptation and rapid learning rather than raw power. The Coalition's standardized combat protocols, refined over millennia, became predictable patterns for human analysts to exploit. Their reliance on advanced AI systems made them vulnerable to human cyber warfare techniques that seemed crude but proved devastatingly effective. Even their psychic warfare specialists found themselves overwhelmed by the chaotic individual nature of human consciousness. They're in our command networks, came the panic-stricken report from the Quantum Dominion's flagship. How are they bypassing our quantum encryption? It's mathematically impossible. But the humans weren't breaking the encryption. They were using the Coalition's own protocols against them, exploiting the standardization that made their massive fleet coordination possible. Every species in the Coalition used variations of the same advanced technology, creating a unified vulnerability that humans had learned to exploit. The turning point came at the Battle of Proxima 7. Coalition forces had cornered the main human fleet, overwhelming them with superior numbers and firepower. Victory seemed certain until the humans unveiled their true strategy. Every defeated human ship, every lost colony, had been feeding data into a vast analysis network. While the Coalition saw only primitive technology being easily overcome, humanity had been building a comprehensive understanding of their enemies' capabilities. They're not just countering our attacks, Corell realized with growing horror. They're using our own weapons against us. Those aren't human energy signatures. They're perfect replications of our own technology. The human fleet suddenly demonstrated mastery of technologies they should have needed centuries to develop. Their ships began executing impossible maneuvers using principles the Coalition thought they couldn't comprehend. Every advantage the Coalition possessed was turned against them with devastating efficiency. How? Vextar demanded as his command center erupted in chaos. How can they have learned so much so quickly? The answer came from an unexpected source. A human transmission broadcast on all Coalition frequencies. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice carried no mockery, only a kind of patient explanation. You thought our greatest strength was our ships, our weapons, or our defenses. But humanity's true power has always been our ability to learn, to adapt, and to overcome. Every defeat you handed us was a lesson. Every technology you used against us became a tool for us to study and understand. You didn't just attack humanity. You gave us a crash course in advanced warfare. The Coalition's campaign, meant to last 3 cycles, collapsed in less than 1. Their forces retreated in disarray, their carefully coordinated strategy shattered by an enemy that had turned their own technological superiority into a weapon against them. In the aftermath, as the Coalition Council met to discuss the catastrophic failure of their campaign, Ambassador Kroll's words hung heavy in the chamber. The ancient warnings were right. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology or their military might. It's their ability to turn every defeat into a path to victory. We didn't fail because we weren't strong enough. We failed because we didn't understand what we were truly fighting against. The Coalition's attempt to crush humanity had instead propelled them centuries forward in technological development. The species they had hoped to subjugate emerged stronger, more advanced, and with an even greater reputation for being undefeated in warfare. As news of the Coalition's failure spread across the galaxy, the ancient warnings about humanity gained new meaning. They weren't just a primitive species that got lucky. They were a force of nature that turned every challenge into an opportunity for growth. The price of underestimating them wasn't just defeat. It was watching them emerge stronger from every attempt to defeat them. The Grand Archive of the Galactic Assembly hummed with activity as representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered for an unprecedented symposium. The topic, Understanding Humanity. Chief Archaeologist Kreen Tuveri, now significantly older and wiser, stood before the assembled delegates, the same ancient warnings that had first drawn their attention to humanity now displayed behind them. 20 cycles ago, I discovered these warnings in an abandoned archive. Kryan began. They spoke of a species that could not be defeated, that turned every loss into victory, every setback into advancement. At the time, I thought they were exaggerations, perhaps even propaganda. Now I understand they were something else entirely. They were a guide to survival. The assembled delegates stirred uncomfortably. Many represented civilizations that had learned the hard way about underestimating humanity. The Meridian Empire's failed conquest, the transformation of the Nexus Collective, the Coalition's disastrous campaign, all had become legendary examples of humanity's unique nature. But today, Kryan continued, we're not here to discuss humanity's military prowess. We're here to understand what makes them truly unique in the galaxy, and for that, we need to look beyond their victories to understand their very nature. The main display shifted to show a series of images. Human children learning to walk, falling, getting up again. Students struggling with complex problems, failing, trying new approaches. Scientists conducting experiments, learning from each failure, refining their theories. This is humanity's true secret, Kryan explained. From their very beginning, they evolved not to be the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest. They evolved to learn, to adapt, to overcome. Every human child learns through failure. Every human achievement comes through countless setbacks. They don't just accept this process, they embrace it. Ambassador Chen of Earth, sitting quietly in the audience, smiled as Kryan continued. The alien archaeologist had finally grasped what made humanity different. Look at their history. Kryan gestured to new displays showing humanity's development. Every defeat taught them something new. Every obstacle forced them to innovate. Where other species evolved to fill specific niches, humans evolved to be able to fill any niche. Where we developed specialized abilities, they developed general adaptability. The display showed humanity's rapid advancement after joining the galactic community. When they encountered our advanced technology, they didn't just copy it. They understood it, improved it, found applications we had never imagined. When they faced the collective, they didn't just fight them. They found a way to help them evolve. When the Coalition tried to crush them with superior technology, they turned that very superiority into a weapon. But most importantly, Cryan's voice softened. When they win, they don't destroy. They transform. They teach. They turn enemies into allies. The Meridians now help develop human defense systems. The evolved collective shares their insights into group consciousness. Even the Coalition's remnants have found themselves working with humanity to advance galactic science. The chamber fell silent as Cryan reached their conclusion. The ancient warnings weren't meant to frighten us. They were trying to tell us something profound. Humanity isn't undefeated because they're invincible. They're undefeated because they've made victory itself mean something different. Ambassador Chen stood then, walking to join Cryan at the podium. The human's presence caused a ripple of murmurs through the assembly. It wasn't traditional for the subject of a symposium to speak at it. But then, humanity had always had their own way of doing things. Chief Archaeologist Tiveri is right, Chen began. But there's something else you need to understand about us. We don't want to be feared. We don't want to be worshipped. We want to be understood. Because in understanding each other, we all become stronger. The display behind them shifted to show the current state of human space. Not a fortress or an empire, but a hub of cooperation and learning. Species that had once tried to conquer Earth now sent their brightest minds to study there. Civilizations that had feared human expansion now eagerly participated in joint research projects. The warnings you found, Chen said to Cryan, they weren't just about humanity. They were about the nature of strength itself. Real strength isn't about being unbeatable. It's about how you handle defeat. It's not about being the most advanced. It's about never stopping your advancement. And most importantly, it's not about standing alone at the top. It's about helping others climb with you. As the symposium concluded, delegates from across the galaxy finally understood what those ancient warnings had tried to tell them. Humanity wasn't undefeated because they couldn't be beaten. They were undefeated because they had redefined what victory meant. In their eyes, true victory wasn't about conquest or dominance. It was about growth, understanding, and mutual advancement. The ancient warnings remained in the archives, but now they were accompanied by new records. These didn't speak of humanity's military might or their adaptive capabilities. Instead, they told stories of how humanity had helped transform the galaxy, not through force, but through their unique ability to learn, to teach, and to turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth. And so the legend of humanity's undefeated record lived on, not as a tale of military prowess, but as a testament to the power of adaptation, cooperation, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't in remaining undefeated. It was in teaching the galaxy a new way to define victory itself.